For now, let's take a look at money matters. The JSE is muted with its global peers mixed as investors awaited the release of the U.S. Federal Reserve's minutes from its recent meeting. Mamokete Lijane is Standard Bank Global Market Strategist, and she joins us now for the latest moves. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time this afternoon. What drivers are influencing the current market performance in afternoon trade?
Yeah, I think you've captured the market quite succinctly. There's very little happening this morning. I think markets have kind of like are catching a bit of a breather after a few weeks of very strong kind of activity and performance. And that's really what's coming out. Markets are looking for the next driver. The thing that we're looking at today is there's very little data coming out, especially out of the U.S. A little bit on the Chicago Fed activity. There's new home sales. We don't expect that that's going to move the market much. The market is really going to be focused on what comes out of the Fed minutes. That's kind of like the next indicator on monetary policy. And also, I think, the results that come out of NVIDIA's Q3 results that are going to be published after our market close are also going to be quite important. So I'd expect that markets are going to open quite quiet in the U.S. this afternoon, and we're probably going to take our cue from that.
South Africa's business cycle index is up for a fourth month in September. Talk us through the significance of this data and how the country is faring.
Yeah, I think the story for South Africa has been one of relative strength in the second half of this year after what was a very, very challenging first half, largely due to the load shedding that we saw then. So it doesn't surprise me really that the data continues to show an improvement in activity in the second half of the year. And you see that as well when you look at growth expectations, which seem to be shifting more towards strength from a very, very weak level in H1. So one would expect that you'll see that continuing uptick in activity for the second half of this year and into the early part of next year as well.
African Bank has reported a net profit after tax of 505 million rand. Help us dissect the performance.
Yeah, so I mean, African Bank's numbers actually reflect, a profit that is down about 31% relative to the number the previous year. The bank also, I think, is subject to the normal ebbs and flows of, activity in our market. And we've seen a very weak economy this year, a very weak consumer, and that's reflected in the impairments as well, which have doubled relative to where they were in a comparable period. So I think the African Bank result illustrates two things. Firstly, the bank continues to improve in its operations, but that is associated with higher costs, which is what is eroding profitability. There's the fact that the current market as well is challenging, which is reflected in high impairments, but it also reflects a mix of business that moves it a little bit away from just the consumer business into the business banking type of and loans, which also has lower margins. So I think it reflects a business that is healthy, that continues to improve, but also you've got the drag that would be associated with the current market environment, as well as the shift in strategy. While the shift in strategy is going to make the bank more resilient over the long term, but it also involves them moving into probably a business that is a little bit less profitable, so to speak, and that's what is illustrated in those results.
Momentum Metropolitan has also released an operational update. What do those numbers look like?
Yeah, those numbers were, like I said, I was actually just looking at them now, and it looks like it's one of those neither here nor there kind of results, very muted kind of update. I think, their results show some good performance coming out of some areas of their business and some muted. There's certain challenges that are persistent as the numbers are coming out of Metropolitan, for instance, and that client base is also shifting. If you look at the mix of business, the live business is showing lower earnings, which is really reflective of valuation adjustments as a consequence of markets or yields moving across bond curves. And if you look at their mix of business, the higher valuation erosion at the longer duration part of their book. In investment, they're doing okay. AUM keeps improving on the Metropolitan side, but again, their momentum is not looking great. So it's almost like a whole little bit of a mix here and there. Nothing really that shows, massive strategic shifts or anything that suggests, that the business is improving or deteriorating in any meaningful way. So I would expect that that's going to be business as usual, probably reflects a little bit of weakness, but nothing that is a big change in narrative around the business one way or the other.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.